Chosen one, listen carefully. This moment is not random. If you are watching this right now, understand this clearly. Nothing about what happened to you was an accident. The betrayal you faced, the lies that were told, the way they turned the story around and made you look like the problem. God saw every single detail, every word, every move, every silent intention. You were loyal when others were fake. You stayed real while others wore masks. You gave truth and they returned manipulation. But hear this, their actions did not go unnoticed. Heaven was watching even when no one defended you. When they played the victim, God saw the truth behind the performance. When they smiled in public and betrayed you in silence, God took note of everything. This moment is not about revenge, it's about revelation. Because what they tried to hide is now being exposed. The same people who doubted you, used you, or tried to twist your story will soon realize they misjudged you completely. You were never weak. You were being prepared. You were never losing. You were being protected. You may have questioned yourself. You may have wondered if you were wrong, if you should have stayed quiet, if you should have fought back. But God is saying now, you didn't need to defend yourself. I already did. The truth is rising on its own. And when it does, it will speak louder than any explanation you could have given. This is the moment where justice moves silently, where karma doesn't shout, it arrives, where those who tried to play innocent begin to feel the weight of their own actions. And you're stepping into clarity, peace, and restoration. So don't look back. Don't doubt. Don't shrink. This message reached you because it was meant to. Before you go any further, do this one thing to align with what's unfolding. Like this video, comment, "Thank you God for revealing the truth," and subscribe to this channel, because what's coming next will confirm everything you've been feeling. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. That's the part that hurts the most when you finally allow yourself to see it clearly. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't they didn't realize. They knew. They knew which words would hurt you. They knew which actions would break your trust. They understood your soft spots, your emotions, and your limits, and still chose to cross them. That realization can be painful because it forces you to accept a truth you once tried to ignore. What makes it harder is that many of them didn't look cruel while doing it. They smiled, they spoke gently, they acted normal, even caring. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but beneath that surface, something else was happening. Decisions were being made without considering your feelings. Lines were crossed quietly. Boundaries were ignored slowly, one small step at a time, and because it wasn't loud or dramatic, you kept giving them the benefit of the doubt. You told yourself maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they were unaware. Maybe you were overthinking. That's what kind-hearted people do. They give others chances, sometimes too many. You tried to understand them instead of protecting yourself. You kept hoping things would change, that clarity would come, that the truth would eventually speak for itself. But deep down, your intuition already knew. There were moments when something felt off. A pause in their words, a shift in their behavior, a silence that felt heavier than usual. Those were not coincidences. Those were signals. And while you tried to silence your instincts, your heart was quietly keeping score. What hurts most is realizing that while you were being genuine, they were being strategic. While you were showing loyalty, they were calculating outcomes. And when the time came, they didn't hesitate to protect themselves, even if it meant hurting you or twisting the story. That realization can shake you deeply, because it challenges your belief in people and in fairness. But here's the truth that brings peace. Even though they thought they were in control, they never truly were. You didn't need to expose them. You didn't need to argue or defend yourself. Life saw everything. God saw everything. Every intention, every hidden motive, every quiet action that didn't match their words, none of it went unnoticed. What's powerful is that the truth doesn't need your voice to survive. It carries its own weight. Over time, things begin to reveal themselves naturally. People start to see patterns. Stories stop adding up. Masks begin to slip. And slowly, without you saying a word, reality speaks louder than any explanation ever could. You may not have gotten the apology you deserved. You may not have received the accountability you hoped for. But what you did receive was clarity. And that is far more valuable. Clarity frees you. It releases you from confusion, self-doubt, and the emotional tug-of-war you were trapped in. Now, you can move forward lighter, not angry, not bitter, just aware. And awareness is power. You don't need revenge when understanding has already set you free. They played the victim. When you stayed silent, when everything started falling apart, something unexpected happened. The people who caused the damage suddenly changed their role. They didn't take responsibility. They didn't reflect. Instead, they flipped the story and placed the blame on you. What hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal. It was how confidently they acted like the victim while you were left carrying the weight in silence. You noticed how quickly the narrative shifted. One moment you were trying to hold things together, and the next you were being talked about as if you were the problem. They spoke softly in front of others, choosing words carefully, shaping a version of the story that made them look misunderstood and you look difficult. And because you didn't defend yourself loudly, people assumed you had something to hide. But the truth is, you stayed quiet for a different reason. You weren't afraid. You weren't weak. You simply didn't want to lower yourself into chaos. You understood that arguing with people who had already made up their minds would only drain you. You chose peace over performance. You chose dignity over drama. There were moments when you wanted to speak up, to correct the lies, to explain your side, but something inside you held you back. Not fear, wisdom. You knew that shouting the truth doesn't always make it heard. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any explanation ever could. You trusted that what was real would eventually reveal itself without you forcing it. While they were busy shaping a false image, you were quietly processing the pain, healing in private, and learning valuable lessons. You were learning who was genuine and who wasn't. You were learning how easily people project their own guilt onto others. And most importantly, you were learning the strength of restraint. Staying silent didn't mean you agreed with what was being said. It meant you refused to play a role in a story that wasn't honest. You chose to protect your peace instead of feeding the chaos. That takes courage. The kind that doesn't scream for attention, but stands firm in quiet confidence. Over time, things began to shift. The same people who once felt powerful behind your silence started feeling uneasy. Truth has a way of surfacing on its own. Inconsistencies show, stories don't add up, and slowly people begin to notice the gaps between what was said and what was real. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to expose anyone. Life did that for you. And while they were busy maintaining an image, you were healing, growing, and becoming stronger inside. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was self-respect, it was emotional maturity. And in the end, it became your greatest strength, because while they were acting, you were becoming someone unshakable. And that quiet strength will always speak louder than any false story ever could. You were being tested, not punished. There were moments when you truly questioned everything. You looked at your life and wondered why things were falling apart when you were trying so hard to do the right thing. You weren't hurting anyone. You weren't cutting corners. You were showing up with honesty and effort, yet it felt like the ground kept shifting beneath your feet. That confusion hurt more than the struggle itself. It made you ask, what did I do wrong? But what you were facing was never punishment. It was a test, not to break you, but to reveal who you really are when pressure shows up. Life wasn't against you. It was watching how you handled disappointment, silence, and uncertainty. It was observing whether you would allow pain to turn you bitter, or whether you would choose to grow through it instead. You didn't always feel strong. Some days you felt tired, drained, and unsure of yourself. There were nights when your thoughts kept you awake, replaying everything that went wrong. Still, something inside you refused to give up. Even when your heart felt heavy, you kept moving forward. That quiet determination was proof of your strength, even when you didn't see it. What made this phase so powerful was not what happened around you, but what happened within you. You learned patience when you wanted answers. You learned humility when your ego wanted recognition. You learned to trust yourself even when others doubted you. These lessons didn't come easily. They came through discomfort, silence, and waiting. There were moments when you felt misunderstood, when it seemed like no one truly saw how hard you were trying. But during that time, something important was happening beneath the surface. Your character was being refined. Your emotional strength was deepening. You were learning how to stay grounded even when things felt unstable. Instead of becoming angry or resentful, you chose growth. You chose to reflect rather than react. You chose to remain kind in situations that could have easily hardened you. That choice matters more than you realize. It shows maturity, awareness, and inner strength, qualities that can't be faked or forced. And now, looking back, you can see that the struggle didn't come to break you. It came to prepare you. It taught you discernment. It taught you patience. It taught you how to stand firm without losing your softness. That balance is rare, and it's something only experience can give. You were never being punished. You were being shaped. The pressure wasn't meant to crush you, it was meant to reveal who you truly are. And now, as you move forward, you carry something powerful with you. Clarity, resilience, and a quiet confidence that can't be shaken. You passed the test not by being perfect, but by staying true to yourself when it mattered most. God saw everything you never said, out loud. There were many moments when you didn't say a word. Not because you had nothing to say, but because explaining yourself felt exhausting. You carried thoughts that stayed locked inside your chest, prayers that never reached anyone's ears except God's. And that was enough. You didn't need to perform your pain or announce your struggles for them to be real. God saw every quiet moment you endured. When the world around you grew noisy and confusing, you chose silence, not out of weakness, but because your heart was tired of being misunderstood. You didn't want attention, you wanted peace. While others spoke loudly and demanded to be heard, you whispered your worries in the dark, trusting that someone greater was listening. And he was. God saw the nights when sleep wouldn't come easily. He saw the thoughts you carried alone, the tears you wiped away before anyone noticed. He saw how you tried to stay strong for others even when you felt empty inside. You didn't broadcast your pain. You carried it quietly, with dignity, hoping that one day it would make sense. There were moments when you questioned whether anyone truly understood you. You felt unseen, overlooked, and misunderstood. But while people missed your struggle, God never did. He noticed the strength it took to keep going when you wanted to stop. He noticed how you still chose kindness even when life felt unfair. He saw the compassion you gave when you had very little left for yourself. You didn't ask for recognition. You didn't demand justice. You simply kept moving forward, trusting that truth doesn't need to be defended loudly. And while others were busy performing, explaining, or pretending, God was paying attention to your heart. He saw your intentions, not just your actions. He understood your silence better than any words could explain. There were prayers you never spoke out loud, but God heard them clearly. The quiet hopes you held on to, the fears you tried to release, the moments you felt unsure yet kept going anyway. None of it was invisible to him. Every tear had meaning, every pause had purpose. Even when it felt like nothing was changing, something was happening beneath the surface. Your patience was being strengthened, your spirit was being refined, your trust was growing deeper. God wasn't ignoring you. He was working in ways you couldn't yet see. Now, as time moves forward, you may begin to notice a shift, a sense of calm, a quiet assurance. Not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because you know you were seen, heard, and understood all along. The weight you carried was never unnoticed. You were never alone in your silence. God saw everything you never said out loud, and he honored it all. Their mask is slipping. even if you don't see it yet. Right now, it may feel like nothing has changed. From the outside, it might even look like the people who hurt you are still moving freely, untouched and unaffected. But what you don't see is what's quietly happening beneath the surface. The shift has already begun. It's just happening in ways that aren't loud or dramatic. When people act from false intentions, they can only hold the mask for so long. At first, everything appears fine. They speak confidently. They present themselves as innocent. But over time, small cracks begin to form. Inconsistencies show up in their words. Their stories stop lining up. People start noticing the difference between what's said and what's done. And once that awareness begins, it doesn't stop. You don't have to expose anyone. You don't have to defend your side of the story. Life has its own way of revealing truth, and it does so slowly, layer by layer. The same people who once believed the surface story begin to feel something is off. Doubt creeps in, questions arise. The energy around the situation shifts, even if no one openly talks about it yet. What's important to understand is that this process is quiet by design. Real truth doesn't need drama. It doesn't announce itself. It simply starts showing up in small, undeniable ways. A look someone gives, a conversation that suddenly feels awkward, a moment when someone realizes the story no longer makes sense. These are signs that clarity is taking root. While this is happening, you may feel invisible. You might wonder if anyone sees what really happened. But the truth is, awareness spreads quietly before it becomes obvious. People are noticing patterns, they're observing behavior, and slowly, the image that was carefully built begins to crack under its own weight. You don't need to push or prove anything. The moment you stopped reacting, the balance shifted. Your calm became louder than their explanations. Your silence created space for truth to breathe. And in that space, reality started doing its work. It's also important to remember that when someone operates from falsehood, they're constantly managing appearances. That takes energy. It creates tension. Over time, it becomes exhausting. Meanwhile, you're becoming lighter, clearer, and more grounded. That contrast alone speaks volumes. What's unfolding now isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about alignment. Things are naturally moving back into order. The truth doesn't rush, but it never gets lost. And when it surfaces, it does so in a way that can't be ignored or denied. So even if it feels quiet right now, trust what's happening behind the scenes. The shift has already begun. The mask is slipping, not because you exposed it, but because truth always finds its way to the light. Your silence was protection, not weakness. There were moments when you could have spoken up. You could have defended yourself, explained your side, or reacted the way others expected you to. But something inside you chose a different path. It wasn't fear that held you back. It wasn't weakness. It was an inner knowing, a quiet understanding that this battle wasn't meant to be fought with words. You sensed that reacting would only pull you into chaos. You understood that arguing with people who had already made up their minds would only drain your energy. So instead of feeding the noise, you stepped back. You stayed calm. You protected your peace. That choice alone showed a level of maturity many people never reach. While others were busy creating stories, pointing fingers, or trying to control the narrative, you were doing something far more important. You were listening to yourself. You were learning when to speak and when to stay still. You were choosing dignity over drama. That kind of self-control doesn't come easily. It comes from growth. Your silence wasn't about fear of confrontation. It was about wisdom. You knew that real strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it moves quietly, confidently, without needing approval. You trusted that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. You trusted that time would reveal what words never could. As others focused on short-term reactions, you were being prepared for something greater. You were unknowingly protecting your future. By not engaging in unnecessary conflict, you kept your energy clean. You preserved your clarity. You avoided becoming tied to situations that would have drained you emotionally and spiritually. There were days when staying silent felt uncomfortable. You may have questioned whether you were doing the right thing, but deep down, you knew that reacting in anger would only create more confusion. So you chose stillness. And in that stillness, something powerful began to happen. Your inner strength grew. Silence also gave you space to observe. You saw patterns more clearly. You recognized who acted from insecurity and who acted from truth. You learned that not everyone deserves access to your thoughts or explanations. That awareness alone shifted the way you move through life. While others were busy defending their image, you were building character. While they were focused on winning arguments, you were focused on protecting your peace. And that difference matters, because peace gives clarity, and clarity brings direction. Now, looking back, you can see that your silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. It allowed you to rise above the noise, to stay grounded, and to move forward without bitterness. You didn't lose your voice. You simply chose when and where to use it. And that choice is what set you apart. Your quiet strength became your shield. Your restraint became your power. And your calm presence proved that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply stands firm. This season is about restoration. This season isn't about struggle anymore. It's about restoration. You may not have noticed it at first, but something within you has begun to settle. The constant heaviness you carried for so long is slowly lifting. The tightness in your chest is easing. And for the first time in a long while, you're beginning to breathe a little easier. That's not a coincidence. It's a sign that healing has already begun. For a long time, you thought losing certain people, situations, or plans meant something went wrong. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you failed or made the wrong choice. But now you're starting to see the truth. What left your life wasn't meant to stay. It wasn't taken from you to punish you. It was removed to make space for something healthier, something aligned with who you're becoming. When things were falling apart, it felt like everything was being taken away at once. But in reality, what was being removed were the things weighing you down. Relationships that drained you, environments that limited you, patterns that kept you small. You didn't lose value. You were being lightened so you could move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. This season of restoration doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or dramatic moments. It comes quietly, in the way your thoughts feel clearer, in the way your heart feels less heavy, in the way you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. Peace is returning, not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally aligned with what's right for you. You may notice that you're no longer chasing what once consumed you. You're not forcing connections. You're not begging for understanding. That's because your energy is shifting from survival to stability, from proving yourself to simply being yourself. And that shift changes everything. What once felt like rejection is now revealing itself as redirection. What felt like loss is showing itself as protection. The people and situations that fell away created space for healing, clarity, and new beginnings that actually match who you are becoming. You're starting to trust the process again, not blindly, but calmly. You're learning that not every ending needs an explanation, and not every door needs to be reopened. Some things were meant to end quietly so that better things could arrive without resistance. This season is gentle but powerful. It's teaching you to rest without guilt, to receive without fear, to move forward without carrying the weight of the past. You're no longer trying to fix what broke you. You're allowing yourself to be restored. And that's the beauty of it. What once felt like loss is now becoming the foundation for peace, clarity, and growth. You're not going backward. You're being rebuilt, slowly, intentionally, and with purpose. You're being elevated. While they stay stuck, you may not fully realize it yet, but something important has shifted within you. While others remain caught in the same cycles, reacting to the same problems, you are quietly moving forward. Not loudly, not forcefully, just steadily. That's what makes this moment powerful. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're simply growing beyond what once held you back. What's happening now is subtle but real. Your focus has changed. The things that once drained your energy no longer have the same hold on you. You're not interested in arguments, validation, or being understood by everyone. You're more interested in peace, clarity, and purpose. And that shift alone is a sign of growth many people never reach. While others stay stuck replaying old stories, you're learning how to release them. You're not angry anymore, just aware. You see patterns for what they are. You understand people's limitations without needing to judge them. That understanding gives you freedom. It allows you to move forward without bitterness weighing you down. What's also changing is your sense of direction. You're no longer reacting to life, you're responding with intention. Decisions feel calmer. Your thoughts feel clearer. You're choosing what aligns with you instead of what simply feels familiar. That's a powerful shift, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens when you've been through enough to know what you no longer want. While others remain caught in the same emotional loops, you're quietly stepping out of them. You're building boundaries without guilt. You're learning when to step back and when to move forward. You're becoming more selective with your energy, and that's not selfish. It's wise. The reason this feels different is because growth often happens in silence. There's no applause, no announcement. Just an internal sense that you're no longer the same person you were before, and that's okay. In fact, it's necessary. Growth requires shedding old versions of yourself, even if others are more comfortable with who you used to be. You might notice that some people don't understand your change. They may feel distant or confused by it. That's not your responsibility to fix. Not everyone is meant to walk into your next chapter with you. Some were only meant to be part of the lesson, not the future. As you continue forward, trust what you're becoming. You're not rising above others out of ego. You're rising above old limitations. You're choosing peace over conflict, clarity over confusion, and purpose over approval. That's real growth. And while others may still be circling the same patterns, you're moving on to a higher level of awareness, quietly, gracefully, with confidence. This is what elevation feels like, not loud, not flashy, but deeply grounding, and it's only the beginning. This is your confirmation. If you're watching this message found you for a reason. You didn't imagine the betrayal. You weren't wrong. You weren't crazy. God saw everything, and He's already handling what you don't need to touch. Your only job now is to keep walking forward with trust. Before you move on, do this one thing to seal this moment. Like this video, comment, "Thank you God for revealing the truth," and subscribe to the channel, because what's coming next will make everything you went through finally make sense.